Hi guys, Steve Capozzi in Thailand. I want to talk to you today about my concept for primary and secondary tinder. Part 2 of this video, I actually make a fire from my primary tinder bundle inside a larger combined secondary tinder bundle to make a flame that lasts long enough to start kindling. That's the whole idea behind this. Okay, so I've got my coconut fibre tinder. Starts with sparks. I've already got videos online where I talk about coconut fibre tinder bundles and starting fires with sparks. So that's a given with sparks. Tinder can be more valuable, it can be more rarer, it's harder to find. You've got to find it, you've got to make it, you've got to look for it, you've got to process that stuff. It takes time, it takes energy. You may not have much of it, it may be hard to find, you may want to ration it. So you may not have much tinder material. It's fairly valuable, okay? Especially for me. Now, I'm a good example. I've got coconuts coming out of my ears here in Thailand, but it still takes potentially hours of work to find coconuts, cut them open. I've got videos where I do this, talking about coconut fibre tinder. I find coconuts, cut them open. Then I've got to pry out and work out and process out the fibres. I've got to dry it out in the sun, put that stuff out in the sun, collect it, it might rain, gets wet, collect it again, and that's all in the heat of Thailand. And that's potentially hours of work to make like a relatively small amount of tinder material. I'm not sure about you, but perhaps the same thing might happen to you as well. You've still got to process your birch bark and so forth. So because of that, your tinder material might be fairly valuable. You may not have much of it. You may have a small bag. You may want to ration it. Now, if you don't have much tinder material, you can't be guaranteed you're going to get a long enough lasting flame to start your sustainable fire, to start your kindling, which you add fuel to start a sustainable fire. Now, you can start with a large enough bundle of tinder material to get a long lasting flame to start your kindling. That's fine. But if you don't have much tinder, you may want to ration it. Then your tinder might become your primary tinder. You then may want to collect what I call secondary tinder material and make a larger secondary tinder bundle into which you put your primary tinder. You start with sparks. The larger combined tinder bundle will burn hopefully long enough to start your kindling. And that's what I do in part 2. I've got a relatively small amount of coconut fibres that I started with sparks, and I've built and collected enough material, secondary tinder material, that then burns and creates a flame that lasts long enough to start kindling. And that's the whole goal of a tinder bundle. You need to be guaranteed you have a flame that lasts long enough to start your kindling. And that's really the goal behind it. You need to have enough tinder. Now, if you can't be guaranteed that you have enough tinder, that's going to be a problem, because don't forget, in my system of campcraft, in my system of fire making, you need to make fire conveniently, relatively quickly, and 100% guaranteed, 100% of the time. A tinder bundle needs to be big enough to get a flame that lasts long enough to start your kindling. If you don't have enough tinder, you don't get a flame that lasts long enough, it doesn't start your kindling, then you failed. Then you want to get more tinder. Then you want to look for tinder. Then you panic. It's getting dark. You want a fire. You need a fire. You don't want a fire. You need a fire. Then you're going to resort to a lighter and a ring in a tube or something. Bugger this, I'll just start a fire quickly. You failed. You failed my system. You failed yourself, because you want a fire 100% of the time. So you need a tinder bundle that's big enough. But if you don't have enough tinder, then that can be a problem. So you want to collect your secondary tinder material, or your dried leaves, dried grasses. In part 2, I collect those materials. Dried bamboo leaves, I'm in Thailand, so I have plenty of dried bamboo leaves, those palm fronds and so forth. That stuff burns really easily, but it doesn't make good tinder. It can't be ignited easily by sparks. I'm not saying it's impossible, but you'll be surprised. Dried leaves, dried grass and so forth, it's not as easy to light by sparks. I'm not saying you can't do it. As a beginner, That's the first thing I did. I picked up dried leaves, dried grass, and I struggled to light it by sparks. And I thought, what's going on here? Because what you need is fibres. Guaranteed fibres that can start by sparks. As I said, if you need to ration your tinder, you need to collect your secondary tinder material and make a larger bundle to get a flame that lasts long enough that leads to a sustainable fire. And that's what I do in part 2. I collect some materials, I use a relatively small amount of coconut fibres in a larger bundle, and I get a long-lasting flame. Those secondary tinder materials, dried leaf, dried grass and so forth, burns easily. But as I said, it doesn't make good tinder. You'd be surprised. Dried leaves will break up and fall through your fingers, fall down to the ground. So it's actually not good stuff. It doesn't make fibres. You can't pull it apart to make fibres. That's the key. Dried leaves, dried grass, it has no fibres. That's really the key behind good tinder. You need fibres. The other thing about fibres, it's fine, it starts with sparks, it burns easily, but you can also make a nice airy bundle that you can hold up. It doesn't fall apart, doesn't fall through your fingers, doesn't fall down to the ground. It stays intact, like that. You can pick it up, you can blow air in there, get a fire going, put it down. You can blow air on the ground, sure, but it's easier to hold it, manipulate it, blow into it, and that's why fibres are so perfect as well, because you can make a nice bundle, you can hold up and work. So that's just a quick video. Primary tinder material starts by sparks in a larger secondary tinder bundle of fine material which cannot be easily ignited by sparks but which still burns easily, and that combined tinder bundle gives you a long-lasting flame. So I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope you found it interesting, and I'll see you for the next video.